Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chicago Humanities Festival and today's program, Cecil McDonald Jr. on Cuts and Beats. I'm Allison Cuddy. I'm the Artistic Director at CHF. You can learn more about all of our programming and help support it at chicagohumanities.org. I want to thank our captioner for making this and all CHF events accessible. You can activate captioning right here in YouTube. This program is generously supported by Richard Gray, who is a founding board member of the festival. Thank you to the Gray family for your support. This is also presented in partnership with the Hyde Park Art Center. Cecil McDonald Jr.'s exhibition, Cuts and Beats, runs through June 12th. The center is open and you can go to their website, hydeparkart.org, to find out how to attend. We are so delighted to welcome the Chicago artist Cecil McDonald Jr., who will be in conversation with Dr. Terri Francis, who's director of the Black Film Archive and Center at Indiana University, Bloomington. Please join me in welcoming Terri and Cecil.
Hi, Cecil.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm really excited to talk about your work. I love an art day.
I do too, right? Friday is usually my art day officially, but yeah, I'll take them wherever they come. Yeah.
You know what? One of my superpowers, this was not in my CV, I'll just tell you.
Okay.
I can make any day into whatever day I need it to be. So sometimes I'll just declare it's Saturday.
Okay, right.
You know, and then I just have a Saturday. It could be Tuesday, it could be Thursday. I feel like we're about to declare it's a Saturday.
Right, I like that.
Yeah, it's our art day where we go to the museum.
Superpower. At least I'll try to develop it.
I'm really intrigued by your work. There's all this photo montage, collage. I love assemblage. Mm-hmm. So, why don't you? Yeah, can we look at what you have been working on there?
I'll just start with a couple of images that I think. Well, I'll start with the ones that for me started it all. And that when you're in the studio, you're working with things, and then there's this thing that happens where you put these things together and they speak to you in a very particular way or in a strong way. And then this one is it. So it had everything for me. I call it, this is from the exhibition that's now on display at the Hyde Park Art Center. It's called Cuts and Beats, which are references to DJ culture, idea of actually cutting material, of course, beats and music, beats as they relate to dance. And I like the idea of bringing these things together like a perfect mix or a perfect blend. That third really nice thing. As Frankie Knuckles would say, that third thing is that blend is the third record, right? And so this is kind of like that thinking behind that. It's the whole exhibition, all the work is an homage to nightclub culture, DJ culture, dance culture, all these kinds of one of my three things that I feel Black people are at best at home with themselves. Kind of nice is the nightclub, your home, and then of course the church.
The nightclub, home, and church. Yes, bringing a touch of the juke joint to each one, I would think.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And depending on who you are, the church and the nightclub are very interchangeable. So. I hope that's not
You know, that would be a great superpower to have. If you were in any one of those and you felt stuck, you were like, I declare that this is the nightclub. I-
It's like Bill Withers does it perfectly in his record Harlem. You know, that line about the Saturday people and the Sunday people exchanging, passing each other, coming home,
oh, yeah.
going to church. It's like a perfect kind of,
Oh, the poetry of that.
yeah. And he
Mm.
knows it right away. Yeah.
Mm.
So there's a combination of things that happen. So there's this work that I did or have been doing in nightclubs around the city, Chicago, South Side, basically. And those are stepper sets, house music, festivals and clubs. And I stumbled upon this really wonderful archive at the Center for Black Music Research at Columbia College. And there are these covers, music sheet covers from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And I turned through those things. I was both appalled, I was amazed, I was inspired. So I love when all that happens, right?
Yeah.
If you're appalled and you're inspired, you know, like they usually don't exist in the same space.
Yeah.
So I found these and I would start making copies. And I started, you know, they sat in the studio for a while before I figured out what I wanted to do with them. But I really enjoyed the language. And all the names on the cover created this whole research vibe where I just started looking, who are these people? What did they do? And then you find out they're like the first group of artists out of Reconstruction who have the courage, the fortitude to say, I'm going to be an artist.
Oh my God.
I know, right? And it was just so amazing. And I knew some of them already, like Burt Williams. And then these are people who performed in blackface. And I think we kind of shunned them at times too. There's some shame in that.
Yeah.
I looked past that, again, looked at their fortitude to say, I want to be an artist in this period, in this time. And not only that, but be successful at it. And then I like this idea of me collaborating with them across.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, let's see what you did.
Can you see this image?
No, have you shared your screen?
Let me do that. Oh, I'm sorry. So you see that now?
Yeah. Dark Town is out tonight.
Right. Of course, Dark Town is a euphemism for the black part of town. But I love the fact that it is Dark Town. So I started claiming some of that language.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
I want to go to Dark Town. Yes.
Yeah. It's funny how that happens. As you said, appalled and fascinated at the same time. I think that Dark Town, Color Town is another common term for the segregated Jim Crow black side of town, which was also had a magic to it.
Exactly. And so the image that you see on the couple, I started imagining, I would have collaborated with Will Marion, right? Who is Oberlin trained classical pianist, right? Who went there to study classical music, but he discovered syncopation when he got there. And he got completely turned out, so much so that his mother said, I sent you there to be a classical pianist and you came back a nigga.
Oh!
Yes. And they was black too, but of course, you see some respectable things happening there, right?
Right.
He found that music, and it took him and turned him around, and this is what he concentrated on. So I said, okay, so you can't have, they weren't in charge of their image though. I said, okay, let me just give you my image. I'll create the covers for you. I'll recreate the covers for you. You can send these out. I just had these little conversations in my head as if I was talking to them. Would you like this? Bert would be proud of this piece. I was talking to myself like that in the studio the entire time. And so this is like one of the first ones that come from it. As far as size goes, these can be as small as 16 by 20 inches, and they can go as high as 60 by 40 inches. I enjoyed the big cut, so I made like small maquettes that were 8
Yeah.
by 10, and I would just take them to their natural size. So I had these, I would be carrying around these like bodies in the studio, just cutting and moving them from image to image. So it took a
Amazing.
while to find the perfect one to go. So I would have them all laid out, how the cuts here, and I would just walk up and down, placing, hoping to find the perfect kind of interaction where you can still see the language that's happening, obliviate the racist imagery, but you can still say, oh, this is Will Marion. So maybe when you're in an exhibition, you go look this person up. Right?
Yeah.
And then I like too, like the cakewalk. So you have like Black social dance, which to me, before dance became an art form, it was a way to socialize and kind of, like I say, be in those spaces with the people that you want to be with, right? And so then the performers took their cues from the street, right? And then that made it to the stage. It was always the reverse. So the cakewalk would be performed on stage. Of course, things like Lindy Hop that came later, they all started in nightclubs and streets. And so then they migrated to the stage. So I was kind of like playing with that imagery and seeing how it worked.
So can I just ask a quick question? So the image of the dancers, what era are they from?
That image was made in maybe 1998.
Uh-huh.
So in
Okay.
exhibitions, I have pictures as far back as 92. And then I think I end somewhere like 2017, 2018.
Okay. So you had a practice of photographing dancers and
Right.
performers that you then are assembling or combining with this kind of archival ecstatic moment that you had.
Right, right. And the
With
beauty of it is, if I can say it's beautiful, is that I had no idea that these images would be used for that later. I was just in the space with my people, with the music, there because it's important, and I wanted to be part of that and to make those images.
Yeah.
Pure and simple, art for art's sake. It's not so much later, decades later, that they start. And I showed these images in other ways. I mean, this was my portfolio to get into grad school. But I did show the work in other formats, but this is the first time I extracted these people out of the nightclub settings and then put them in other settings. A twofold archival process. My archive,
right,
and then of course the archive at that time of the Center for the Black Music Research at that time.
Right. And as you say, like you embraced the poster or Mr. Marion's poster as a sign of his courage and fortitude in becoming an artist. And so you mentioning that this is part of your portfolio, or no, I guess the performance images were part of your portfolio, right. But still, I mean, I think I think all artists know it's always the first time, in a sense, when you embark upon a work, and so it references your own courage in expressing yourself and sharing this very, I think in its own way, kind of fragile and tender, but also quite, impactful vision with us. It's really...
Oh, thank you. Here, let me show you.
Yeah, fascinating. This is not what I thought you were going to say. I'm really interested. I mean, I didn't know what you know what I mean? Anyway, don't mind me.
Then this one. Can you see this?
I'm still looking at Darktown is out tonight.
You doing my shit.
Let's see.
Hold on. Sometimes you have to stop and then.
Oh, right, reshare. Oh, this is the life I've been living on Zoom all year. And especially like in the beginning when I was recording asynchronous classes, a word I've never said before.
I know, right?
I've never said. It was just crazy. Like, you think you've recorded something, you go back and like, I shared the wrong screen. I did not. There's no sound. Oh God, it was terrible. Anywho.
So this is can you see Let It Alone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I just saw the eye. Sorry.
good, great. Yeah, and I'm real subtle with that. So
Yeah.
he's the black face with the white eye, uh, and this was like a perfect marriage of these images. And then there are three people in the picture. So there's the hand around the waist of the woman, then there's the woman, and then Bert Williams on the back, and it just fits so lovely. It's
Yeah.
almost, yeah. I don't know. I'm not too articulate right now. You know, I've done it 100. I've looked at this thing 100 times, but I keep looking at it now and go, oh wow, it's really good. But it's
Yeah. Yeah, this one's really good. I mean, what an oh my goodness. Because and while it's like I'm looking at the arm, I guess that's a man's hand maybe. And it's just so fascinating how I, I mean, I don't really understand how collage works, but it's like you're just kind of moving among these different scales. You know, the figure in the background is with the white eye. Seems much larger, sort of a container, and then this woman. But he also seems to be embracing her. But then it's, you know, but the way it's like, I don't know, disembodied but ultra embodied. It's really
great. Yeah, thank you, man. I like it's and see, and then in this piece, I discovered Alec Rogers, who's the writer, composer. So then you discover all these Black artists.
right,
Yeah,
right.
they literally are lost to history in some ways, unless you're really interested in that period. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, and then even Atticus is one of the first Black music companies, right? To publish Black music. And so Bert Williams performed in blackface his entire career.
Right.
But his partner,
George Walker.
yes, George Walker, thank you. Yeah, Walker, they would call Walker and Williams.
Hmm.
He did not. So he would be the urbane Negro, up, you know, proper English. And then Bert would play his foil or his counter, and they would bounce back and forth between the zip coon Negro and the upper class, or the wanting to be upper class Black person, right? And even that's political in its own way. And so I listened to some Bert Williams. Since Bert Williams was probably one of the most famous ones, you still have recordings of him. You have his albums. You can go on YouTube and see him actually performing. So I just immersed myself watching this stuff, and I said, oh, okay, this is like a wonderful kind of interaction between us, he and I, or I and his group that he would take across the world performing. And they were just these really fantastic artists of their period. And we don't talk about them. And I know why we don't, because he's in blackface and we're ashamed of it, right? But I'm not. I'm thinking, I don't know what it meant to be in that period or how I would have reacted, because everybody says what they would have done, what they would not have done, right? But I just love making this new image, but still preserving somewhat of him so we can still see that image behind the image. And then they very much, I resisted too many elements. So it could only be, I really thought about it, Terri, like a beat, right?
Yeah.
It had to just walk on the beat, boom, and it had to flow. So it's not a lot of fussing around. It's not, and that's why I call it in montage. It's just really two very buys, one here. That's it, and that's how they have to function like that.
Right. But you know, also you have to decide what element of each original piece will be visible.
Right.
And so that cut, you know, you got to know that cut is the cut to make, to have that hand, and for her, you know, that turn in her arm, and for her to be placed just with that eye. Oh, that eye is killing me. It's also giving me life. There's a lot happening.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that once already, but this one is.
Well, Well, it's you know what it's like whichever one you're with, that's the favorite one. Because they're also it's real, and listening to you talk about it too, like it's like this portal through which you are seeing that you're learning about all these performers, all these artists, like you said, and the moment of their artistry, the occasion, this particular show, this song, this performer, the writer. I suppose that Burt Williams' music had to have been written by someone,
Hmm.
but Alex Rogers was not a name that would have meant anything to me, and so this is really it's just a really great reanimation of history and of the archives, really breathing life into it. Breathing life into it by cutting it up. That's what is the thing.
Okay. Yeah, I like. Yeah,
because archivists are like, don't touch it, don't hurt it.
I had to oh man, I was taking my cell phone, I was in there like. Oh, she's like, are you making copies? Oh, no.
Yeah.
How can I make copies then? Because I wanted to get these high-res copies. Because on the internet they're really tiny, and I got most of them from that archive. I can't imagine how many others are out there that, if I did some really research and started to move around the country, where would I start to find them and whether they're doing it. So.
Well, how important is it to you then that it's Chicago? Because it seems like from the music that you cited earlier and the dance styles of house and steppin', I think those are Chicago moves.
Yeah, they are very much Chicago. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but I guess it is really important. Yeah. So maybe that's why it all works so well.
Yeah. Yeah, assemblage is so fascinating in that it is all these different pieces, and I'm used to thinking about collage. Well, I think there are probably three words that are kind of on the table: collage, montage, and assemblage. And I don't know if you have a preference or feelings about each of those words. I just bring them up because I always wonder about the seam of the cut and whether the cut is meant to be visible or not.
Wait, I'm so glad you brought that up, because well, first off, assemblage always and I have a piece in there, but I associate that with like a 3D thing. Okay. More sculptural, I think of it like that, or at least reliefs, off the wall reliefs, things of that nature. But the cut, because originally I was like, I'll just make them small and rephotograph them and then make them to the size that I want. But I realized I lost the kind of that slight indentation that something is coming away from the image. So that's why the cut, because you can't even see the cut on here because it's flattened.
Right.
They flatten out the cut. And I found out that Matisse had the same problem with his later works, the cutouts that he did, because he would make them and he would put them up and he'd go, this is fantastic, but then they would photograph them and then they would get flat, and that's not what he was trying to do. So he had to figure out an elaborate system to keep the cut, and so when it went someplace else, you had to position it perfectly. So I had a time going back and forth between my finisher. If the maquette, the eye has to be perfectly this way. But then that's when I went to the cut of the actual cut, and that's what I would share with the audience, not that thing, which is what we're viewing now. So it's really key. You're right. It's so different to see them in person, because then you realize they have been assembled. Yeah. I think if you see this at a glance, you might think this is just the way it is. And on some level, I guess that works.
I guess that does work. Yeah, a painting, or his Williams or whatever character he's in right now, it sort of frames the other dancer, and I guess kind of echoing the text at the top. Yeah, how that has a little shadow to it. Look at you! Look at this. I just can't stop looking at it. There's so much to see. Oh, and there's a little detail to his suit there at the bottom. And a
Right.
number. What is number five? Oh, is it maybe editions of the
Oh,
of the?
yeah, I think that's that could be the addition. Um, and I like that someone wrote in hand the date 1906 at the top.
Yeah,
And
I
so
noticed
that was
that.
another thing. Do I eliminate these things because I have the power to do that? And I
Oh,
said, well, no,
right.
don't do that. Just leave it as is. That's the archival thing that will still come through. Um, yeah, so I left enough because I was really key and careful about this, Terry. I did not want to traumatize anyone else about. I didn't want any more trauma, and so
Mm,
I'm not. The show is a celebration. Um, it's a celebration. It's a shout out. It's an homage.
mhm.
And so I was really careful. Like, what am I showing? And then that that when we have that problem of I need to show this because it happened, but what does it really do for us, right?
Right.
And I said, well, I'm gonna err on the side of we've seen this already. I don't need to see it anymore. And this is going to be a complete and utter celebration of the Blackness and all its like messiness and its beauty. And
Mm,
that's that was really key in top of thinking. How do I show this without trauma? Because I do think if you think about the show as if you lead with the show saying I am dealing with racist imagery, you kind of think what you're gonna see, right? And I bury that. I bury it. It's underneath, much like that stuff is, right?
right.
Underneath, and it still affects you. But I'm going to. This is my salve. This is my. I'm sorry, salve that I'm going to put over that.
Yeah. Did you have more images that you wanted us to look at, or?
Um, and we sharing another one.
Okay.
Oh, this is one that I really wrestled with, and let me do my reshare. I really wrestled with this image because it's putting heat in the image. See this one?
Oh. Oh, this raises the question of labeling.
Yeah. Yeah, so like this person's face is completely in black face with like really large lips. So that positioning was just like to cut that off and to
Mm-hmm.
skewer it. And then these are images. I do these dance drawings in my studio where I cover a platform with canvas, and I have my assistant throw charcoal or graphite while I just dance on it for hours.
Oh.
So these are the outtake from that in my studio. And I just cut it up because I like the gesture. And I'm telling you, I laid it down. I said, God, we're like interacting with each other.
Yeah.
I said, do I keep the minstrel? Like, what kinds of conversations will that start? I call it man the minstrel.
Oh.
I have taken it over. And I just like the way it sounds together, but like taking it over, pulling it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like the body as a space or a place for it. Energy,
Right.
power. Yeah, this is probably like the last one I did. I kind of sat it there for a long time because I wondered about my implications, right?
Mm.
On a piece like this.
Mhm.
But I got over it. And,
Well, I'm going to bring you right back in there because I'm kind of curious about what happened because when I first saw it, all I saw was the minstrel, and it appears to be labeling our guy here in the jeans, and I thought, oh well, that's provocative.
right, right.
Was that part of what you were wrestling with and thinking about?
Yeah, because I'm always I chafe at being provocative for the sake of it, right? But it is provocative, and it just happened that way. And for me, and you should just go with that. Let the audience tell you what they think. No one has, by the way. So you're the first person to call it provocative.
Hmm.
But because of the time when I'm not able to look at when you share the work in a real space with people.
Right.
But I'm sure people are probably thinking about it like that and wondering, should they bring that up to me, or not feeling comfortable enough to broach that subject. Or are you labeling yourself a minstrel? And in some way, you could say that I am, right? And then I guess in some way, it's like putting myself in the place of them, of having to be a minstrel. And what might that mean? Right? What does that mean to your artistry?
Sure.
At the time, they were, Black people love Bert Williams. They love Walker. They thought they were like their biggest audience. So, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to just show you this one. I thought this was interesting.
Oh yeah, no, it's really interesting. I mean, compared to the one before, where the your photograph is kind of in, well, it's not even the photograph. I'm just thinking about this woman who's enfolded
Right.
in this eye. Right. And it's like all the Du Boisian things about the gaze and who's looking at who. There's just so much. And then the gendered framework too of that gaze, that it's important that it's a male eye, but this male eye in blackface, which isn't blackface really just like a white person? Oh, I don't know. There's just so much. And then in this one, as you say, like he covers the face of the figure that is now in the background. Like the original subject is now in the background, but it is, I don't know, it's kind of ambivalent because minstrel is so large. Like the text is so large, and so I don't know, my eyes are kind of going back and forth between the figure that appears to be in the foreground, but also the thematics that are being foregrounded on, on this other level. It's, oh my goodness, so much.
Yeah. And then even the way the text is, it's almost like he's shouldering the minstrel. He's shouldering the weight of that history.
Yeah. And that's serious. Yeah. Because it is a weight. I mean, I think there's a playfulness to this approach, but history is heavy. And this one in particular, which kind of suggests something else about like what it is to dance with our difficult histories, and also, or to even just skate across the surface. Can't catch me, kind of.
Yeah, because I thought, well, who am I to not have to deal with that, right? Like, how do I get the pass? You don't, right? And so, all that's in there. But you're right, skating, thinking about the weight of that past. And and then when I put it down, it just worked so wonderfully. I said, I'm just going to go with this and see what happens. Yeah, I think this is like one of the last ones to leave the space, because I just really was not sure about all the implications we already talked about.
Yeah. And, and then they're both in similar gestures with their legs too.
Right.
I'm now noticing.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so exciting to get to talk about it with you, the maker and the remaker.
Oh, okay.
I would say. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow.
And then I have some images in the exhibition that are sharing and resharing. Here I am. Okay. Yeah, and so I moved back and forth. Are you able to see this before I start talking?
Oops, I was muted.
Okay. Are you able to see this? The purple dress?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. And so then I started playing with the images. So I had like a couple of categories. I had the sheet cover music, but then I also had their publicity still. So things that they would put in the lobby when they were performing, things they would send out to agents to get gigs, their headshots basically. And so I started playing with those as well as background material too. So I went from a text heavy image to a picture like this, which is Hazel Scott, really fantastic pianist, really popular in her time, considered a genius at the time. And I just love her just tucked into the back there. And so again, this is a really large piece. It's like 60 inches, lots of really long cuts to scope, to extract the body from the original club that it was at. And I just love having her look at us, very subtle and very much on the edge. Sometimes I can be too subtle and people don't see it right away, but you got to spend time with it in order to see it. And so this is like the other idea where it's, again, you go from the text, heavy text laden, and then there are publicity stills, there are headshots, and then the last thing I'll show you will be how I just start to work with in my own archive. So it's hard to take on lots of different, go down different avenues.
Yeah.
I found me really fruitful.
Mm-hmm. And the switch to color is intriguing. Mm-hmm.
Oh, here. I love when you get a rhythm about something, and all of a sudden you know exactly what you're doing, and you feel like you got it, man.
Oh my God, yes.
It's like, oh, okay, here, go here, share here. That's what happens when you see it. But yes. And so I'm a closeted surrealist too. So like when I went to grad school, you didn't even mention that you were like interested in that. It seems to be so old fashioned, like surrealism, really? You know, because I studied with Dawoud Bey, Marvin Cat. Yeah, so it went, Dawoud was like, dude, I'm not, can you point that at a person?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The great portrait maker, Dawoud Bey. But he appreciates an abstraction, I think.
Oh yeah, he does. But at the time, I think, they're trying to, it's grad school. They're trying to mold you and push you, and so again, here's another one where there are like 3 people in the front and then a person in the back. And so then I just started, and I'm not sure why I'm so surprised by this, but when you start cutting up your own images and then you reassemble your own image, it's like, why did it fit so well? And I'm like, well, it's because it's still all your pictures. That's why it still fits so well. But it's not something you would think about. So then it's like, oh, I'm now reassembling another photograph from my photographs that now I'm putting on top of this in the past.
Yeah.
So then it became, oh, wow, now I'm really going down a hole here because it was easy when it was just the one image. Well, it wasn't easy, but it was simpler. They're not the same, right?
Yeah, I got you.
It was simpler to put the one image on the text document cover. But then when I start cutting my own images, reassembling them to put them on something else, then it just became a lot more complicated in a very good way. And then I like these gestures that are not, they're from a nightclub, they are dancing, but at a quick glance, they don't look, it's like, what's going on with this piece, right? I just love the little punch, a little touch at the stomach or at the waist.
Yeah.
The intertwining legs, where clearly there's movement happening. You can see that by the cut of the garments on the pants, the way they're swooshing through air, but at the very top, perfectly still. Yeah, so again, this is one of the ones where I move out of the text and move to more imagery or minus the text. I got one more.
What's in the blurred background of that?
Sorry. Can you still see it?
No, you're not sharing anywhere. I mean, I'm just curious. There's a very rich.
Yeah, it's another artist. I don't have my notes in front of me. She was married to George Walker. Oh, Ada Overton.
Yeah, I know the name well. Huh.
And
Oh,
she took over for George when he died early. And so she ran the troupe with Bert for, I think, a year or so after he died. And so this is her image in the back that she would have put into the lobby to say she's performing. And then this will be the image she would have sent out as well.
so you blurred her image and then placed the 20th century images on top. So late 19th and late 20th in a dialogue kind of.
Exactly. And then, at some point I was able to disregard and that's probably the surrealist in me, like disregard what appears to be strange, and really embrace that, the strangeness of it, and put my arms around it and kind of care for it. Whereas I think in the beginning, I was much more focused on communicating something very simple but elegant to the audience, and not trying to, I don't know what the word would be, but none of these gymnastics about cutting and matching. And like, this gets more gymnastic to me. It's kind of like I'm stretching, I'm starting to like do backflips with this. Whereas the other ones are very much a simple cartwheel Cecil will do, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a little bit more complicated and
yeah. It's really striking though. I mean, the eye, it's like you have to mentally do some dancing to move around the image. And it's kind of a pleasant feeling, but also estranging that you look at the picture and you think you've seen it, and then the picture comes back in this other way, like, oh wait, those aren't her legs though. What's going on? Sit there and I suppose, if you thought about like this historical work that you're doing, I mean, strangeness certainly, attends our experience. You know what I mean?
I have to put that on my studio wall. Strangeness. What do you say? Attends our experience?
Yeah.
I like that. I like
Yeah. Shall we both get on screen and just try to get hold of what we've been looking at here? My goodness. Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. Fascinating. I mean, as I know, one of the phrases that you've used about your work is, the extraordinary and the ordinary. And I don't know, in a way, this is like the extraordinary and the extraordinary together. Although, as you say, these images were part of, an everyday performing career. But these are exceptional people. I don't know, can you talk a little bit about that theme in your work, this ordinariness and extraordinary?
Oh, sure. That really took shape and hold in my body of work called In the Company of Black. And I was just really disheartened by the notion that Blackness existed on these really extreme poles, of either you're just a super Negro or you're just nothing. Like nowhere in between. And I was really interested in like seeing everyday people like in pictures. Just, a teacher or someone a professor, somebody. I'm like, I see these people all the time, but I never see them in the galleries.
Yeah.
And then you realize, it's not extreme enough for them.
Well, one of your photographs that's very ordinary, but that I cannot stop thinking about, it is a picture of a couple in the front seat of, let's say, their car, having a conversation. Or I think they're arguing, actually. Mm-hmm. And it appears to be on a suburban street, which I just took to be suburban because there's a lawn behind it. It was giving me Douglas Sirk. It was giving me man in a gray flannel suit, Technicolor, melodrama. I mean, it is very cinematic. I guess the aspect ratio is kind of cinematic because of the windshield and everything. But that the color, the what you did, ooh, yes. Have I said too much? I just really was struck by it. I mean, as you talk about like strangeness in the ordinary, and it's really lovely.
Well, that's a breakthrough picture. I know when I made that picture, it was our last year of grad school. I came and put that thing up, and man, we didn't talk about anybody else's work for the rest of the day.
I can see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if you know the artist Colleen Smith, but she always talks about her work in relationship to. She and I were in residency once, and she talked about Douglas Sirk.
Douglas Sirk, Sirk.
Yeah, and the idea of the melodramatic, all of that, and that's so it's interesting to hear you say that.
Yeah.
You two are the only people who have said that though. So
Well.
that picture is of myself and my daughter. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
And I staged that picture because I love the idea of the car being like its own theater space.
Yes.
And how people feel like they are not seen when they're in their car. It's like you feel like you're in a space that's your space, but everyone can still see you.
Right.
And so I just loved it came about because then I was like remaking memories. I was taking my daughter home one time and she was talking about a boy like excessively, and I just looked at her and said, "Have you kissed him yet?" And that like stopped the conversation. And so I said, "Let's remake that picture, that conversation." And so that's me in my car. That's in front of my house. It took a lot to make that picture, but that was like my breakthrough work, and I was really off and running with that picture.
Oh yeah, it's great, and the way that you capture the car as a stage, that actually ends up spotlighting you. Within the car, you think you're having a private conversation, but actually you're being framed for everyone walking by.
Everyone is see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really right for, I think, for photography. It's a really, just a very, it really, really struck me. And I'm wondering, I guess it's not the same. It seems on the surface very different from the archival research that you've done, like the staged, somewhat fictional photograph. But do you see them as related? And
well, and they go back to that space where Black people are themselves. And that, to me, that's like a domestic interaction with a family member. And so this is where we are. And so the large umbrella that's 2 of the trilogy, right? And I haven't gotten to the church yet. I have to figure that out, right? But that's where I linked those 2, right?
Okay.
And it's still about the Black experience.
Yeah.
Right? But here I'm trying to my attempt is to center it as an ordinary activity that we all know and see that happens to everyone, but it's through my lighting, the way I stage it, that makes it like an extraordinary thing. And so what I found out doing was to find the smallest thing I could amplify and deny this need for extreme images of Black people either way.
So there is a restraint. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No, you're right. So I was trying to push back against those poles of, like I say, extreme wealth, super. You're just the best Black person ever, right? Mm-hmm. You're the model for the race, and then this person who, poverty, drugs, all of that.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to see those images in spaces. I was really working hard towards that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? How surprising an ordinary Black person can be. In terms of representation, it's
right. And then allowing us to have that space, like, because this is where the pressure can come from. the pressure to always be some type of representative or some type of example,
Yes.
you know. And then I'm like, well, everyone else, why can't we just? How do I deny that? And
Yeah.
that's my attempt to do that, but at the same time, supplant what's out there. Um, yeah, to supplant what's out there to like, okay, no, we need more of this type of image as well. And I'm not saying that those images don't matter or they're not important or you can't see them or you can't make them. But then it's like, well, what about the person who's like the kindergarten teacher?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what is she doing today?
Right. But the thing is too, it's not mundane. You do stage
Right.
and bring out something really big screen in that is, that is in the kindergarten teacher, in the banker, in people walking around, and like with the archive, it seems to me what you've done, I'm just putting into words, into other words, what you said, the space between misery, I suppose, like let's say the 19th century misery and exceptionalism. But I think part of what you're saying is that they don't graft that neatly onto each other. That within this late 19th century, known as the nadir of what is still the unfinished emancipation, of African Americans here, that you're saying, but now what would it take to decide to be an artist in this moment, to be visible? And I always think about to be alone on stage. That just seems to me to be an act of real courage,
Right.
to like let yourself be seen.
And it needs to be celebrated. It needs to be discussed. And plenty of people write about it because it's a very academic subject now. It's safely in academic.
Oh, well said.
Right?
Oh, I think that's right. Yeah, no, I think because there's the confrontational, and I imagine that your work is confrontational. What do I mean? The visceral, or to see it in the flesh, in a sense, whether in the gallery space, in person, to see to kind of inhabit that ambivalence between us and them, and the parts of us that are in the past and the past that we carry with us, and like the minstrel image, like, ooh, who is it labeling? Is that me? Is that him? And then your willingness to like perform in the image is just, adds another layer to it. It's really, and then the one that was in color, it was giving me like Archibald Motley vibes, that one.
You really are perceptive, man, because it's you like, yeah.
I might have studied these things in the past, but
I'm right here, Cecil. Yeah.
I get what you're doing. I'm really enjoying looking at it.
Yeah, because I did a whole talk about that Motley work, and
Oh, you did?
yeah, I don't know if you know Amy Mooney, who is a professor at Columbia College Chicago.
Oh, I don't.
And she saw some of these connections and had me do a talk about that. And I was really, I had always been attracted to their work anyway.
Yeah.
Chicago, South Side of.
Oh, right.
And so I'm like, oh, right. And then I started digging through that, and you're right, that's very much a Motley kind of, I don't know if it's an influence, but it's definitely something that once it was made, I thought that.
Yeah, there's something about the quality of the color and the gesture. Well, that's, we talked about pose, but I feel like gesture, and we probably should bring it to a close, which I'm kind of sad to do. But this will just be take one. We'll have another. This sequence will continue. But just like, I don't know, if you have a thought, I don't know, I was thinking, when I was thinking about our conversation, I was wanting to end like on like the large message, but I'm finding myself very curious about something much smaller, like the gesture, and how you as the artist, like I'm just thinking about your gesture of the hand and cutting, and how, I don't know, do you have a thought on the gesture of some of the characters in your montages? Do you know what I mean? I
That's
don't know.
a good thing to think about because I
Uh-huh.
do think about that all the time. Um,
Mm,
I spent so much time in nightclubs that I
mm,
watch. I used to get in trouble for this because I would approach a woman. I said, you know what? I like the way you did so and so. I'm taking pictures. I come back and could you do that again? And then some guy would like, why is he? What did he ask you? You know, I would get into trouble.
right.
I had this, and I was so innocent because I just loved the gesture,
Right.
right? And I study gestures all the time, and I'm trying to like, oh, why does that body move like that? Oh, they turn like that,
Mm,
right? And so, and I'm not sure this is where you were going, but this is where I'm thinking. So, the idea, because I'm really trying to find ways to bring us back to our bodies, right? Um, and not use the body as just a thing to carry your head around, right? But how do you activate the body? And so I'm always thinking about gesture and how the body moves. Um, and then, like, what are the bigger metaphors for that once I
yeah.
figure that out? But yeah, the gesture is something I'm preoccupied with all the time.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
How does a person walk into a room? You know, like, what does that say about them? And I've
Mm,
like made photographs based on the way a person walked in the room. So can I come and photograph you? Because they were the way they kind of move their bodies.
yeah.
And that you are in your body. You know, that's what I'm always thinking. Like, how do I get in the body?
Yeah. Oh, whew. Thank you so much for all of these thoughts and images and just sharing your ideas. This is really great to be in conversation with you. Thank you.
It was fantastic way to spend my day. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we had a good Friday.
Yes, you did.
We had a good Friday on this. I don't know what day today is. It doesn't matter.
All right.
It doesn't matter. A real pleasure. Thank you.
All right.